Good evening. I'm Craig Muckle, board member and director of marketing and communications for 40 Plus of Greater Washington, and your host for this evening. So if you tuned in looking for Ken Jennings or Pat Sajak, I'm sorry to disappoint you today, but I'm sure that we'll have just as good a time today with our speaker, Allan Freedman. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our regular Monday speaker series, which is sponsored by FCEDA, the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. 40 Plus is an all-volunteer run organization that has been in existence for nearly 70 years. We provide career professional resources and training so they can know and effectively communicate their value with confidence in securing a new position or career transition. We do this primarily through our career transition skills training course, which is currently being upgraded to better meet the needs of our 40 Plus audience and will be delivered in the fall along with our regular Monday speaker series. And please note that our Monday speaker series will now be held at this time on Monday evenings from 7 to 8:30 to once again make it more accessible for everyone to join. The topic for this evening is online tools to research, identify, and vet potential employers. And our speaker is Allan Freedman, a longtime friend and supporter of 40 Plus. Tonight, Allan, who is a 40 Plus alum himself, will take you on a guided journey through online tools that will help you research potential employers. And you can find out about workplace culture, company compensation and benefits, leadership, and more. Allan has worked in the nonprofit community since 1993 and is currently the Chief Operating Officer at the National Board for Certification in Occupational Therapy. He has also facilitated more than 30 sessions of our 40 Plus Career Transition Skills Program, mainly on leveraging web resources to enhance a job search. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Allan. And before Allan picks up, just very quickly, if you have any questions for Allan along the way, you can put them in the chat or raise your hand, but I will be helping administrate that so Allan doesn't miss anything. So without further ado, Allan, welcome. Good to have you today.
Thank you, Craig, and welcome everyone for this evening's program. I am going to start by sharing my screen, and I want to minimize this so you should be looking at my LinkedIn profile. Is that correct? Can someone just confirm?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to cover a range of online resources to help you find and land interview. That's really what it's about. And then, of course, for the interview, landing the job. But that's a different part of 40 Plus. I expect you'll know many of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. I hope I show you wrinkles and elements that you haven't seen before, and I quite likely tools and or ways of leveraging tools that you've not seen before. We're going to cover three elements of the process. Element one is locating and finding jobs. Element number two would be researching companies and organizations, and element three is applying for the job. As I prepared this presentation, I went through several assumptions. I'm going to assume, like everyone else in 40 Plus that I've met, you have experience and you have something of a career path that you've been following. And it is likely you fall in a defined profession or professions. There's different ways of slicing it: profit, nonprofit, or for-profit, or government, for example. Within government, are you looking at state and federal careers, or are you looking at like working on the Hill? Are you in IT? Are you in sales and marketing, operations, human resources, etc.? It's helpful to know where you are to leverage these tools fully. And what I mean by that is it helps you direct your energy and your efforts. It helps you look for the best opportunities. And in this job market, we are in a very interesting job market in that there's a lot of transition occurring, people leaving jobs and starting new jobs. And I know not everybody's feeling that it's like a very great market. It's not always lined up for that. And part of that is where the 40 Plus element comes in, particularly helping the 40 Plus crew, people like myself, work and sound current as you work your way through the process. But there are, if you're in that fortunate position where you might be looking at multiple opportunities, then things like work-life balance matter. healthy workplace. You know, is it a toxic workplace? Is it a healthy workplace? And of course, pay matters, and we like to have a sense of what we're getting into. For those of you that are looking at a change in careers, obviously it happens all the time. Sometimes it means a step down to sort of reboot. For some folks, it means moving forward. With that said, let's talk about finding jobs, locating jobs. I'm sure you're all familiar with job boards like, you know, Indeed. There's LinkedIn jobs. You know, if we go back here, there's LinkedIn jobs. These are two popular options, and I'm now putting on my HR hat because as Chief Operating Officer, I manage HR, and I do all the oversight of hiring and of staff. Not that we have a whole lot of positions, but I've been doing it for a long time. And I can tell you, I like both Indeed and LinkedIn to list jobs. We almost always list our jobs on these two job boards. And the reason being, from the hiring manager standpoint, the ability to filter through candidates is very efficient in this. You know, in the old days, people would fill out a resume, put on a cover letter, put in an envelope, mail it in, and then HR's job was, or the hiring manager's job was to go through that pile. It's all done obviously digitally now. All jobs are looked at digitally. These are two of the better sites. I haven't used monster.com in a long time. But these two are very good at also for the job searcher, in that you can set up searches and save them. I will point out that every tool that I'm going to show you tonight, including these, I do not pay for premium services. I use the basic free account. There are reasons for people to look at paid services, and I can talk about that in a few of the areas, but I am a cheap person and I don't like to spend that kind of money. So everything I do on the free side. In terms of finding jobs, like I say, the other area that I would highly recommend that you look for is if you're in an industry or profession, you want to look for profession-specific job sites. And so, for example, in nonprofits, there's ASAE. They have a job board that is open to the public. And so if you're looking at nonprofits or considering that as a part, that's a very robust and busy job board. There is a more exclusive version that is a subscription-based service, CEO Update. This would just be for executives and senior level nonprofit people. And it's not cheap, it's kind of pricey. I buy it because it's my field, and I also use it to search for people. But just to give you another example, if you're interested in Capitol Hill jobs, Tom Manitos has a job board for positions on the Hill. So there are a lot of job boards out there. So how do you find the right job boards?
Alan, excuse me real quickly. Before you move on to that, someone asked about what do you think of ZipRecruiter?
You know, it's there. It seems to work well. Again, I have more limited experience. I have not used ZipRecruiter as a hiring manager, so I can't speak to its utility from that standpoint. I can say that I haven't seen enough value relative to LinkedIn and the Indeed, but from the nonprofit sector looking for jobs. But I do understand a lot of people are using ZipRecruiter. I have heard that large companies have linked ZipRecruiter right in with their HRIS system. We'll talk more about those in a bit, but HRIS stands for Human Resource Information Systems. And so a company, even like AARP, or even a large association like the Associated General Contractors Association, those groups will use an HRIS system to help manage their staff. And it keeps all the records and the compliance and the I-9s and all the things you have to do. But one of the elements in those systems is a hiring support module. And it's often called ATS, applicant tracking systems. We're going to talk about those. I know that ZipRecruiter has a rather nice plugin with some of the HRIS systems where they can feed directly into it. Most of them do, by the way. That's my limit of knowledge on ZipRecruiter.
Yeah.
how do you locate job-specific boards? That's where you need to talk to folks in your profession. Find out from your profession where are the job boards. And so if you're in human resources, you reach out. And so, for example, that's one of my roles. I might reach out to my local Montgomery County SHRM chapter. So I am a member of SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers. I am a SHRM SCP. I've got their certification program, and I'm a member of my county chapter. I have been a member of the county chapter for many, many, many years. And you can go to the meeting almost in most cases. If you're not currently employed, you can reach out to the chapter and say, hey, do you mind if I attend your meeting? I'm not currently employed, but I'd like to attend. They might charge you a fee if there's a meal or something, but they'll generally let you in to come in. Some associations will let you, if you have an existing paid membership, they'll let you continue on for a free membership, ASAE, for example. When I was unemployed, I contacted them and said, hey, I'm not currently employed. They said, oh, well, no problem. We'll extend you another year, no charge. I was like, really? And the interesting thing is in the second year of that, I got a job. So I called them up and I said, hey, I have a job. I want to pay for my membership dues. And like, oh, yeah, no, you're free for the next till the next cycle. So again, professional societies, associations, don't be afraid to ask. If you're not currently a member, what they have for people that are currently job seeking, but they're members of the profession. So finding the right job boards can be very helpful to you. One thing that I want to also talk about in looking for jobs is the value of networking. I know you've heard it, but I am seeing more and more in-person events coming back. And so I think it's important that within your profession, you find what in-person events are happening and attend them. I don't mean job fairs. I'm talking about so let me go back to this Montgomery County SHRM. And if we go down, we see they have the Spring Professional Development Day. And then there's the June chapter meeting. That might be the one to try to go to, June 15th. Few details. What are they talking about? Takes a second. That might be, if I were looking for an HR position in the Montgomery County area, this would be a good place to go because these folks, this is what they do. And so there's not a whole lot of information about the meeting, but I would probably still be interested in going to their meeting if that's what I'm seeking. I can tell you from personal experience, the job that I'm sitting in now, the lead came from me sitting at a table with a headhunter at an event that was recognizing a person for it was a director of development for another organization being recognized for his years of service. Nothing to do with what I do. I don't do development. I'm not fundraising, but I was there. There were a lot of nonprofit professionals there. I went ahead and signed up for it, and that one thing led to another. So networking does work. But do look for association events, state and local chapters. The other area for networking is reaching out to your network. So if I go back to my network, and I've got quite a few people I know, these invitations, but I've got a lot of people, and I might sit there and say, gee, amongst my connections, how many work in operations? And there's things that can, different elements that I can look at, see all people results. So, oh gosh, well, sorry. Web isn't always our friend, but it lists a lot. It'll list people and allow me to see all people results. Come on, there you go. And I can say, geez, I haven't talked to, Michelle Donovan in years. Let me go reach out to her and see what's going on. Like this is where these connections can come through, even if they're somewhat weak connections. Say, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, or I met you at a conference, or, but reaching out to people like to help people. I never rejected a person reaching out to me and saying, hey, Alan, do you mind if I bend your ear for a little bit? I want to talk about some things. Happy to do it. I mean, I might want a little more context than that, but my point is people want to help you. And so that's another area, but it's also, so, using your contacts, finding contacts that are contacts. We're going to talk a little bit about more of that when we're looking at researching companies, but informational interviews are never, I did informational interviews with really good friends of mine, in part just because I wanted to get out of the house. I was, I know that when I was going through my period of looking for a job, and it was somewhat extended, you lose heart a little bit. Sometimes just getting out of the house and having a cup of coffee with an old friend who was a work contact and near their office, hey, like, let's meet for lunch or whatever. And I know, like, those events can really help a lot. They didn't really have much to offer me at that moment, but it was a big pick me up because I was working always to try to be out of the house at least 3 times a week. Last item that I want to talk about in finding jobs is being visible online, and that comes down to your LinkedIn profile. And I'll just share mine. I'm not going to go into the details of how to set up a really good LinkedIn profile. There's great information out there, but take the time to set up a great LinkedIn profile. Don't shortchange yourself. The way I did it is I didn't sit down at one sitting and try to do it. I took a section, I did some reading about, hey, how do you do this top section? Because you can do some web searches on great Google, just Google great LinkedIn profiles. There's lots of good information out there. Some of it's contradictory. That's because not everything is, there's more than one way to skin the cat. But making sure that you have it, the job, listing your jobs and having information. For those of you that are familiar with Success Bites, you need to have them in your under your experience, because it's better to illustrate why you're great instead of telling people you're great. And Success Bites are the key to that, which is a fundamental thing in 40 plus. Education, volunteering. I've been a volunteer. These are just 2 of my top volunteer opportunities. I do other volunteer work, but I limit it to the ones that I am. I just want people to know that I give back. And you can see 40 plus is right on here. I have been with 40 plus now 10 years. So it's been 10 years since I've found 40 plus. And I remember that wet, rainy, wintry day that I ran into Joel in the old, I think it was P Street office. But it's important that you have a good LinkedIn profile. I cannot stress it enough. I have been found by recruiters. None of the situations have panned out, but I have had recruiters find me and then reach out to me. And so having clear what you're looking for, who you are, and then supporting it with why you're awesome. And it is really, that's the one thing that I can tell you about the whole Success Bite, which is PSRs, problem, solution, result. Writing it out in that format, and then collecting them over all your career, and you realize how much more success you've generated, because it's sometimes it doesn't, it's like, what have I done in my life? And it really takes some digging to pull all those elements out. But then when you see them on a piece of paper, you're like, whoa. And then you put them onto your LinkedIn profile. It matters. Just checking to see. Yes, thank you.
Alan, while you have a break here, just going back to the SHRM piece for a moment, I assume that there are chapters throughout the region, not just the Montgomery County.
Oh yeah, yeah. There is.
Yes, and then also I assume that the people, the professionals like you that are part of SHRM represent a variety of industries. So there should be HR representatives from most industries that our folks here would be interested in. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nonprofits are just a small piece of the SHRM picture. It's funny because when I go to events at the chapter, it's been a while because of COVID, but when I would go, I initially used to sit down with a lot of the nonprofit people, like if they sort of group us together. And then I started intentionally sitting with people from other professions and industries, because I found they had more interesting things to talk about, how they had the same problem and they approached it differently than, you sort of, so yeah, it's SHRM. If it's HR, I highly recommend their stuff.
Right.
Meetings. So I just wanted to sort of give an overview. I think most of you probably have good sense of how to use job boards. I just want to reinforce the message about networking and setting up those alerts where the job board, where you actually set it up so that the job alerts and you set up jobs. So this is an alert I have: Chief Operating Officer, Baltimore, DC, full-time on-site hybrid. And I get notified periodically, I get notified periodically on that one as those positions come up. And I could set up a lot more alerts. I am looking, but I'm looking not very hard, I guess would be the way I would put it. So that's the discussion about looking for jobs. And I'm intentionally kind of doing it fairly quickly because I think most of you have that down. The next piece I want to talk to is, okay, so you found a job, and let's go over to here. And so you're looking for jobs and you find a job. I mean, there's Indeed, but let's, this is a CO update. They're looking for a president CEO of the National Institute of Building Sciences, NIBS. Just to be clear, I'm not actually interested in this position. I'm just using it as an example. And I noticed when I was reading it that I've highlighted it down here, it's vetted solutions. So this one is being handled by a headhunter, which is different than when a company handles it themselves. It's not that one is better than the other. Just headhunters are a very unique sort of experience. They're very good at what they do. They work to wean out everything but the best candidates as quickly as possible. That's their MO. So it is not unusual to apply for a job with a headhunter and hear nothing because you were quickly not selected. And so the one nice thing about headhunters, if you're not in the pipe, you may not hear anything. But then again, it might be 3 weeks you don't hear anything, and then you get a call saying, "Hey, we want to talk to you." Like it's long periods of nothing, followed by sometimes occasionally periods of lots of interest. So I see this one was vetted solutions. So I found it on CEO update. I see it's vetted solutions. So I go over to vetted solutions and I look at current searches and I found this position. And I wanted to show this one just from the standpoint of how a typical headhunter will handle the position. And what they have is what's called a full position profile. This is something most headhunters develop for most of the positions that they're looking for. Headhunters aren't looking for generally administrative positions. They're looking for more higher level, hard to fill positions. That's why they're brought in. And when you click on the full position profile, you end up with a booklet. So it talks about the organization and the position, and it's very detailed, and it goes into great detail of measures of success, what they're looking for, where they're located. You can see, and then here it's saying for confidential consideration, please send your resume and cover letter, and then you send it into the email there. This is typical of a headhunter to have a booklet on the job description. Now, this would be as a comparison. Here is a different job that I found on CO Update, and this is a Director of Construction Technology and Innovation, and they've got a lot of information up here. And the position you can apply through their website, and it goes directly to ABC. So if this is Director of Construction Technology and Innovation, reports to a VP. And it's ABC. It's interesting to me that they don't actually say Associate Builders and Contractors for quite a ways, but it's Associated Builders and Contractors. I recognized it because I actually worked there. So that's another way of this is a direct hire. And so you can see they have a lot more information in the job listing because this is all you're going to get, as opposed to the headhunter that's got the booklet, like for this National Institute for Building Sciences. So let's play with these two jobs. So let me go back to the job. So these are two jobs I'm potentially interested in. So there's the CEO job at NIBS and this director job at ABC. And so what am I going to do about it? Well, step one, typically, I want to look at their website. So I want to read their job description. What my typical MO is if I find a job I'm interested in, I flag it and I save it. I read it once quickly and then I put it aside. I go back to it a second time and I read it more carefully and I say, is this something that's really for me? Do I want to put time and energy into this job listing? If I decide I do, then I'm going to start doing research. And I want to research things like, so is it a good company? Can they afford me? Can they pay me well for the job that they're looking for? How would I know that? What can I learn about the company, its culture and so on. And one of the quickest ways to figure that out is to jump over to Glassdoor. So it's glassdoor.com. and you put in the company name. Okay, so I'm sorry, let me step back. For Glassdoor, you must set up an account. It's free. In order to set up the account, you have to give some information to them. You have to review a company that you've worked for, perhaps put in some other information, fill out a, they want to know about you, and they want to know a little bit about a company so they can build their database of companies. It's basically anonymous for the most part. They don't list your name next to it. They'll say, oh, Allan Freedman said bad things about this. I tended to go, I thought of employers that I had good experiences with, and I kind of put stuff about them to get the free account. Once I have a free account, then I log into the free account and I put in Associated Builders and Contractors, and I find the web page, and this is for the company, and I can read about it. And so there's some very, very interesting information. For a company, I am now thinking, do I want to work there? And I'm like, the first thing I see is that out of 5, they've only got a 3.2 score. That's not great. That's not great. How is that possible? So you can dig into it, and those ways you can dig into it. There's 46 total reviews, so I can start scanning the reviews. But before I get to that, let's look at the detail. So overall, 3.2, culture and values. You see diversity and inclusion, work-life balance, senior management, compensation, benefits, career opportunities. I have to say, it's a pretty mediocre score down the bridge. And one thing that's also interesting, as you can see how the score went over time, you can see it took a major drop off in 21. I almost feel like this is the time they had everybody come back into the office, because I've seen this at other companies where people brought their people back sort of in a draconian, like you will work in the office experience, and you see these kind of drop offs. And then maybe they realized, whoops, maybe we need to go hybrid after a number of people left. Who knows? But that's a very steep drop off that they had in the first half of 21. And they've come back, but they're still below where they used to be. So they're still struggling. I'm not feeling really warm and fuzzy about this organization right now. I did used to work there, but that was a long time ago. So things that I also, I'm sorry, was there a question?
No.
Okay. 71% approve the CEO. That's okay. Michael Bellaman, he's got 11 ratings. You could look at more reviews of the organization. There's a positive one to start, but I'd be curious, like, it hasn't been great. Construction trade, merit shop, blah, blah, blah. I would spend time looking through some of these to get a sense. The other piece about here is salaries. This can be helpful. So I'm looking at a director level. So there's one salary. Let's see what a director salary was. A few more. So chief executive officer, director earns between 116 and 124K a year. And then so base pay. Okay, is that in the right, in the right area for me? And I could say, yes, I am. I can live with that. That's okay. Or I could say, oh, that's way low of what I'm looking for. But at least I have some sense thanks to this. It's better than going in blind. Just looking at their stuff. So you can look at, reviews, salaries, interviews, benefits, things like that. The more I just want to give you a sense of what you can find with Glassdoor. It's a good starting point when you find an organization. For nonprofits only, it is worth setting up an account with Guidestar. Guidestar.org. So guidestar.org for nonprofits only. Set up a free account. It's very simple. They're not even asking for information from you. Just set up a free account. They want your contact information, basically. You look up, so here we are, Associated Builders and Contractors. The only thing I really care about here is I want to show their tax forms. So nonprofits are required to fill out a 990 tax form. And about, 10, 15 years ago, they changed the format to be a lot more information. You'll see here, the most recent one is 2019. They are behind. Usually they're only a year behind. Now they're like 2 years behind. And that's a COVID thing. Still, looking at 2019 before COVID hit, I can get a sense of their financials. So actually here it is. So here's their 29,990 for Associated Builders and Contractors. This is an amazingly powerful tool to review. So I can look at here, number of individuals employed during the year. There were 76 staff. So, okay, I got a sense of how big the staff are. I can look at their high-level financials. They lost money in the prior year. They made money in the current year, but their average total expenses runs about 20 million. Their revenue runs about 20 million. So they're, running, it's reasonable. And their net assets and fund balances is here. It's shown as $7 million in 2019. I bet it's down now. It's not a great number for an organization that size. It should be bigger, but it's not, the end. And then we go down, there's a lot of, I'm not going to go into details here, but there's a lot of information about the organization in these questions and answers, yeses and nos, and there's reports. This is one here. So compensation of officers, directors, trustees, key employees. This is another way to find out what people were earning, at least in 2019. And so you can see a lot of their board members are listed. Usually they just list the staff at the end. Sometimes they list them in the middle. And so the CEO made about 800. The CFO made 200. A VP made 240. A VP made 300, 200, almost 280. 240. Let's see, a senior director was at 157, senior director at 139. So senior directors and then directors were making about 130. So it kind of gives you a sense of where the pay was. I've uncovered some very interesting information about organizations because where I see a major dip or increase. So that's Guidestar, and that's more importantly Glassdoor, which is universal to all organizations. I highly recommend. Now, small organizations may have very limited information on Glassdoor. The bigger the organization, the more information you'll find. Again, researching companies. Again, I talked about culture, to me, that's important. And that's, when we go to the company overview, that's where I'm looking at this grade, because that speaks to me, culture. They list culture and values here, but they also talk about work-life balance. To me, it's the whole package. And like I say, a 3, I prefer to see a company at a minimum of 4 and ideally at above 4.5. 3 is not a good rating. 3 means that there's the things are not all peaches and cream there at the organization. And it starts with the CEO in most cases, and how they manage the team. It's an interesting thing. Just to brag a little bit, so I work for National Board for Certification Occupational Therapy. And our rating, let's see, I haven't looked in a while. Overview. Where's our rating? Oh, here we are, 4.7. And 100%. And the reason we're 4.7 is we had a couple of people that didn't quite fit in my early days that I had to let go, and they left really bad reviews. But most of the people, and I did not encourage people to then leave a bunch of positive reviews and say, okay, everybody must write a 5.0 review. But we're 4.7. And I can tell you we're worth it. We are a great organization. But my point is Glassdoor is a great way to get a sense of what kind of organization they are. So, ABC, looking back at that previous rating, not so sure that I'm, super keen on them right now. I would have to see a lot more before I'd be willing to make a commitment to them based on what I've seen there. Just 3.2 is not great. And it's, this is interesting. Work-life balance unmatched. That's interesting, but okay. I'd have to do a lot more because it's not balanced by what I'm seeing here in the score. Other ways to research. Okay, so that's sort of, for me, there is the first pass. So going back, I read the review, I read the job description twice. And on the second one, I said, I'm interested. Okay. And then I go to Glassdoor and I say, what can I learn about the company? And then I might go to Guidestar and say, what more could I learn about the finances of the company if it's a nonprofit? And let's say I'm still interested. Now I want to go to next level research. It's the first mark, the first pass. I'm sorry, the first check mark is the second pass of the reading of the job description, and that's a yay or nay, go no go. The next pass is looking at Guidestar or at a minimum Glassdoor, and that also may or may not provide enough information, but often it might provide information that says nay. I'm looking for reasons for maybe why it's not a good fit for me. Then let's say I've made that second yes. Now I'm going to start doing more research. One of the areas I highly recommend is to go visit their website. I know that seems obvious, but there are certain areas I am looking for in a website. Number one is I'm looking about the organization. So I want to, there's all this stuff on here. So about ABC, I can learn about the organization. I can learn about the leadership. I'm interested in, let's see, with committees. I'm kind of interested to get a sense of what kind of leadership they have. Here's talks about committees, chapter services, going back, contact us, privacy policy, year in review, 2021. This would be very interesting to hear. Now, keep in mind, this is a PR piece, so they're talking about the very best things, but it'd be interesting to hear, just in scanning through this, what have they got to say about the organization? And I didn't look at this beforehand, but this is great. And then there's careers at ABC. And I'm just curious, membership, director of construction, that's the position that I'm interested in. And so it's right there on their job site. So you can apply online. It's a little cleaner in this one than it was in the other place, but it's the same thing. So, the job is there. The other area that I want to flip over to is after I've learned about the organization through here is news and media. I like to read news releases. Now, generally, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in here. I just want to kind of get a sense of what matters to them. What are they sharing? And so you can see they're talking about a national electrical code, construction prices, inflation, backlog, things like that. Okay, that's interesting. I've spent some time. I would spend a little more time than that. They've got a news line. So what's that? All right, so they got a newsletter. They've got Construction Executive, that is their magazine. I assume it's now online. And again, things that you can read, just get a sense of what's going on in the profession that ABC cares about. And this is obviously taking me to their magazine has their own branded site. So those are just some of the things that I would look at for there in particular. Now, since it's construction, in technology, I might look at some of these areas and see what are they talking about, because if that's an area that's in the position. So, I'm being pretty selective at this point of going through the website. The next area that I like to go into when I'm looking at a company more deeply is social media. Now, before I go into social media, I just want to explain. Social media for me is a tool that marketing departments and promotion departments use. One of the things that makes it interesting to look for and to always worth looking at is it tends to be more current and more recent information. The website tends to be more of a store of archived information. There might be articles from the last month, but it's going to be things that are sort of slower moving. Social media tends to be reporting more fleet of foot, more current, more urgent, more instant. And so it doesn't matter which one you go to in many cases, because they're all, so I'm just going to start with Facebook, and I'm going to write in, this is my page, and I'm going to do, where's the search? There it is. So builders and contractors. All right, there we are. Metro Washington, that's a chapter. Oh, I see. That's interesting. It's not the national. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let's see. Let's go to So just if you, I do, my other thing is dyslexia. That's my other thing. So that's why my thing says dyslexia as my handle. Come on. There we go, ABC National. So again, what am I interested in here? Because this tends to be different kind of information. And so I do like to look at it. And in many cases now, social media is handled across the different platforms. We use a thing called, oh, I can't think of the name of it right now, but we use a software that allows us to post messages to Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, that allows us to basically homogenize the message to fit the specific platform. So most bigger organizations tend to do that, but here's a thing about a, project. Why am I interested in this? Because this tells me sometimes, in many cases, what interests them, and sometimes it talks about where they're headed. So it's in issues that are important to the organization, where that's what we see here. And also it might release information about things where they're headed. So that's why I like to look at social media. It might say, hey, we're excited that we have this new deal with blank, and we're going to be investing, millions of dollars in this new initiative. Things like that tend to be announced here first, and that's why I like to at least check out social media. So social media feeds. Oh, back on the website, there is one more thing that I'd like to look for and I did not see here. So let's just try. I can tell you, this is one where you can wow people. Strategic government plan. See what this one is. Contractor's plan. Nope, that's not it. Sometimes the association will put their strategic plan, and they have not. I can tell you, it is a heck of a win if you know what their strategic plan is. And so I'm just going to pick another association that I actually was looking at for one point. So if we click on here, we look at so here, APA, this is American Psychiatric, another nonprofit. But what I liked about this one, except they talk about goals, so this is good, but I was thinking they had a nice strategic plan, documents and policies, operations manual, strategic plan. So here is American Psychiatric Association strategic plan. Why is this important? One, I may find that my job intersects with one of these key documents. So in my cover letter, I might write, as your director of construction and technology, I see that one of your major, strategic goals of the board is to improve the understanding of technology in the home building, in the construction environment. Like, if you put a line in there, you have connected the fact that you identified in their strategic plan to the job you're applying for, showing an incredible insight to the organization and how you fit. So I always like to look at the strategic plan with an eye towards how does it intersect with the position I'm applying for, and how can I then bring that into my cover letter. So that's why that was one element I did want to talk about on researching companies, and I knew APA had it. But they've got all these, it's not huge, but they have strategic goals. And if I can connect the strategic goal in the job reasonably in the cover letter, that's a big win. Because believe me, that's the one that gets hiring managers to say, whoa, it's a good one to have. Research, another area that I like to research that I think is important. It's along the lines of, is using LinkedIn, but there's a unique element in LinkedIn. Of course, it's the connections. But let's go back to Associated Builders and Contractors. Let's find the national office. And so we found the national office. Okay, so we can view the page. There's some videos and things, but the main thing I love, and there's page posts, and it's the same. If you see how it's similar, it's the Buffalo Bills stadium deal. That was the same thing we saw over in Twitter. So again, their social media posts are normalized across all the different avenues. It's some interesting things. So their head count apparently has gone up by 10%, and the median tenure is 2.4 years, which frankly isn't very impressive. But given the 3.2, I'm not surprised. But what I really like about this is the people highlights. So when we go to people, we can look at people that we know and or could get to know. So there's a lot of second level connections as I'm looking through here. And keep in mind, I did work there back, 15 plus years ago. So apparently nobody that I knew then is still there. Interesting. So, let's say that, so it was technical, it was the technical side. So I'm looking to see if there's perhaps somebody here that there's safety, compliance. I'm just looking for somebody that I might want to try and reach out to. And so just for the sake of argument, let's say that I have identified that I would really like to talk to Danielle. So I see I have 5 shared connections. So I click on there and I look at the 5 shared connections and I see that's Kathleen Garrity, Mike Henderson, Mark Wolf, Aaron, and Steve. I would absolutely have no problem reaching out to Kathleen and saying, hey, Kathleen, I'm interested in this position at ABC. Could you perhaps connect me to, what was her name again? Danielle Woodall. And I just like to have an informational discussion with her. Can you help me do that? This is where LinkedIn can allow you to get to that next level of research by using your connections. First, I would ask, going back, I would ask, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to go that way. I would actually ask Kathleen and say, hey, I'd call her up and say, hey, Kathleen, what can you tell me about ABC today? What do you know about ABC? And what can you say? Now, I happen to know that she was a former executive of one of the chapters. And I would have absolutely no problem calling her up and saying, hey, what can you tell me about ABC today? It's changed a lot since I left there 15 plus years ago. And so that it's a ability to learn about the company through that process. Social media, LinkedIn, people, again, you can look at their page. It's got the social media posts, it's got job openings, and then the insights. I am not a premium member, but there are some insights you get with premium. I used to not be a big fan of applying for jobs through LinkedIn, but actually I like to do it now because you can do your own resume and your own cover letter, and it still links to your LinkedIn profile. And if you have a good LinkedIn profile and you put the time into it, you're going to list it on your resume anyway. And so that's a high-level view of researching companies. And I'm going to pause on that. Do we want to take, Craig, do we want to take like a 5-minute break? Or should we just keep going?
I think we can press forward unless there are questions. No one has put anything in the chat recently. So does anyone have a question they want to ask of Alan at the moment? And if not, then we can press forward.
I'll keep going. So right. The 3 elements I talked about was finding the jobs. We talked about that, and I did that more briefly. There's researching, and I hopefully have shared some tools on the research side. Most of you know about Glassdoor, but you should be using it. It's to me, that's part of the review process. And then if the company gets past that, then I've done this next layer of review where I've maybe talked to some people about the company. I have determined that, I'm really interested in this organization. So now I am going to go through the process of applying for the job. And that is a big part of 40 plus is the developing a customized approach as opposed to a generic approach to the application process. And I already talked about looking at the strategic plan as one way of trying to make a connection between where the organization's vision is headed and what you could contribute. And It could be something like, oh, in the strategic plan, they are looking to grow their blah, blah event by, 50%. And you could talk about, well, it's interesting because when working at this organization, that's exactly what we did. And here are some of the things that made it work. And I'd be happy to bring that skill and knowledge to your organization. Those kinds of things are what hiring managers love to see. I can tell you from practical experience, it's pretty rare, very rare, that people will actually reference specifics of the company they're hiring to and connect it to their experience. And yet it is an incredibly compelling element. So let's talk about the application process. I talked about the headhunter element. Let me go back to here. And did I? No. All right. Sorry. The working with headhunters, I'm just going to talk briefly about them. They will hold your hand through the process. And what I mean by that, as long as you're a viable candidate, they will hold your hand through the process. So what you're trying to do with them is you send them a resume and a cover letter that shows them why they should put your name forward. You're not selling you to them, you're selling you to them to sell to the company. And so, for example, this is Vetted Solutions, Jim Zanello. He's looking to find the best 2 to 5 candidates. I don't know what his process is for this President CEO National Institute of Building Sciences. He has some pretty set ideas of what it is, and he's tried to put as much of that down in this position profile. And so when applying for this, your job is to catch his attention. And I mean the whoever is doing the search, his or hers, but you want to catch their attention. You're actually and so by reading this carefully, you need to demonstrate, first of all, these are check boxes. Do you have 7 or 10 years of executive experience, et cetera, et cetera? These are in many cases yes or no. And if you have, maybe get away with 1 or 2 no's, but if you have a lot of no's, you might as well not keep going, because you're just not going to make it through the process. He's looking for a lot of yeses when it comes to experience, qualifications, and qualities. Up here, where they're talking about the responsibilities, that's the second part. If your resume has a strong element of, let's say here it says communication, serves as the primary spokesperson. If your resume says that you were the spokesperson for the last 2 organizations, you do not need to put it in your cover letter. He's going to pick that up and he's going to make that connection, particularly when it comes to he's looking for what isn't in your resume but is in here. And so that's part of it. And also he's looking for what makes you a standout candidate. And that's where connecting things like the mission or a strategic plan to the job and your skills, if you bring those 3 together, that's the kind of thing that gets a headhunter, pretty happy, because you're fitting. You want to make it easy for the headhunter to sell you to the company. The rest of it, you still got a long way to go. You got to go through interviews and things, but that's step 1 of getting that call from the headhunter. That resume and cover letter needs to be directly addressing this information, because if you don't address this appropriately or in a way that catches their attention, it's crickets. And believe me, I've heard lots of crickets in my lifetime from these kinds of approaches.
Alan,
Yes.
we do have 2 questions. I'm going to start with the last one first, only because it is a headhunter question. But how do you find a good headhunter who specializes in your field is the first one.
Generally, they find you. In the DC area, you can look up headhunters, and that's where you talk to people in your field. And so let's say in HR, I would I go to the chapter and say, hey, by the way, who are the big headhunters? Generally, headhunters are not interested, particularly in this day and age, of you reaching out to them and saying, hey, just want to let you know I'm on the market. They don't care. I can tell you from a lot of past experience, they don't care. They only care if they have a job that you could possibly really be a good fit for. That's the only time they're interested in you. But knowing who they are, that's helpful. I mean, I do know most of the major players. Some of them, like David Martin, will do presentations. And so you want to go to one of his presentations. I've seen him speak a few times, Jim Zanillo goes and does some things too. So if you know who the headhunters are in your field, i.e. talk to people in your field, and then find out if they're speaking, it's helpful to be in the room with them and introduce yourself. I can tell you they're not going to want to, they might accept a copy of resume. They might even ask for resumes, in which case you definitely want to give it to them. But in more cases than not, it's the old days of headhunters collecting reams of resumes has been replaced basically by LinkedIn. I've had several contacts over the last several years of a headhunter using LinkedIn to reach out to me. So
Right.
there's a nice thing about how to find recruiters on LinkedIn. So thank you, Gaddafi.
And then the second question, which goes back to something you said shortly before the headhunter piece. What is the name of the site that helps you pick out keywords out of job announcements?
We're going to get that. We're going to actually do that.
Okay. All right. So that was from Joan. So Joan, hang on, and
Joan, I got you covered.
Toward that.
I just wanted to take a minute to talk about headhunters because they're so different. They will be intensely interested in you right up to the moment that they're not. And what I mean by that is, as long as you are a viable candidate in the eyes of the company, initially you have to get past their screening, and then you have to go through, usually a series of interviews with the targeted company. And as long as you keep going up the ladder, they're gonna hold your hand. They're gonna help you. Hey, you should talk to me about things to do your resume and so on and so forth. Do everything they say, and then one day, either A, you're gonna end up with a job, which I have had happen, or B, which has happened to me much more often, is that you are no longer on the list of possible candidates, and you might get the courtesy of a call saying, "Hey, sorry, not today, not for you," or you just hear crickets. I've been shocked at the number of times where I have literally they've ghosted me. Nothing, no email, no response. Yeah, hey, email, just curious. I guess I'm out of the running, but could you tell me, anything? Nothing. I've had what I thought were otherwise pretty decent people just completely ghost me. So that's the flip side of my headhunter experience. They're interested in you unless they're not. And that's all. I really just wanted to sort of give folks a sense of that part of it. So I'm going to walk out of that. Let's talk about direct applications. So obviously cover letter and resume is important. And if it doesn't ask for a cover letter, I would still put one together 99% of the time. And I would stay tuned. I am not going to cover how to put together a good cover letter or a resume tonight, but it is important that you know how to do those two things. And that's something 40 Plus specializes in. So I do recommend that you learn how to do that through the 40 Plus. But I do want to talk about the process of how then, so let's say I put together my cover letter, I've got my nice resume, and I'm sending it to ABC. So I've hit it apply now. So let's see, they had jobs. It's a little slow. Is it working? All right, let's go back to, that's not it. Why is it not going? Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here's the job. It's actively recruiting. And see more at the bottom. Let's see. How do I apply? Or is it up here? Oh, apply. Sorry. Now, if you have the premium, it does give you some pretty interesting information. I will say that there is a time where having the premium thing. So it's taken me to their website to apply. And you click here to apply online. And I'm just curious, obviously I'm not going to apply, and that's interesting. So let's give me another click. So let's click apply again. Okay, so I'm pretty sure they are using what's called an ATS. So I'm not obviously going to, what they do is they have me upload my resume, and then they're going to pull information and put it into the boxes. But this is this is almost certainly what I think is the process of going through an automatic tracking system. It's a human resources information system. This is the part where it helps filter through the candidates. So the question that Joan asked was, what do I do to get through these the best way I can? So I'm going to go back. Here's the job description. And these words matter, because what the ATS is doing is it's looking at these words and comparing them to the words in your resume. So this goes to Joan's question, and the software is called JobScan. Sorry, let me start at the top. JobScan.co. It has a free version and a paid version. If I was in hyper mode, I'd probably do the upgraded paid version. I've had a free version for years, so every like 6 months I get an extra 4 or something, and so I have 18 scans saved up. So we're going to actually use one tonight. And it's what it does. It does a lot more now than it ever did. It'll help you improve your LinkedIn profile, but it's the number thing is scans. So it says paste or upload your resume. So I want to upload, let's see, jobs. I'm trying to think of a recent one. I don't think it's there. Where was it? Oh, here we go. Do I have a new one? Hang on a sec. I know what I can do. There we go. That's the one, right? Yes. Open. All right. So this is my newest sort of generic resume. I normally wouldn't submit a generic resume, by the way. I would have made it personalized. Now we go back to the job posting, and I am going to take everything about the job. I'll include that, but really it's from position requirements up to the description. I'm going to hit copy. I go back to JobScan, and I am going to hit paste. And it's now there, and I'm going to hit scan. And it's going to give me a report. And why this matters, it's going to be looking for, so we find that 80% is generally a good match. So what they're telling me, I'm gonna end the tour here. That my current resume will not get me through an ATS. I will be dumped out in seconds because I have a very poor match rate. I don't meet what they're looking for. So let's find out. Let's go down in the details. So I'm gonna scroll down. What the heck? Why aren't you scrolling? Why? Why is it frozen? Apparently it didn't like me getting out of its tour.
Is this jobscan.co or COM?
COO. CO's just .co. Jobscan.co. Here we go.
Okay.
So adding this company's name and web address can provide ATS specific. So they're saying I should add, I'm not sure exactly how. I'd have to do more stuff on that, but I don't have director of construction. So I don't have that in my, anywhere in my resume. I have the right education, section headings. They really want me to use the term work, and this is actually a very good one, work history or professional experience. So let me go back to my resume real quick. So this resume says professional highlights. This resume was specifically created with the help, for those of you who know that Shira Lotzer, I've worked with her, paid her actually, as a consultant to help me build this resume into its current format. This is not an ATS appropriate resume. It wasn't designed to. And so you see, I use the term professional highlights, but if we go back to here in the job scan, it's saying, we really like you to use the term work history or professional experience. Wait a minute. Hang on a second. Didn't I just read that? Oh, professional highlights. That's why. These things matter. So date format, they're saying I'm not using the correct date formatting. So under my date formatting, you see, I just have years. They want to see months and years or month and year. They really want to see that. So they're saying for an ATS, go in there. We did not find an address in your resume. That's interesting. I was told, you see, I didn't even put Bethesda, Maryland. I used to put Bethesda, Maryland on there. So I might even put my address on there. But these are really good things. Now we go down here. Hard skills comparison. So technology is not even mentioned. It's mentioned 13 times in the job description. It's not mentioned in the resume. That's one of the reasons you see a 21% score. I need to put technology into my resume if I want this job. Construction, it's only listed twice in my resume. It's listed 12 times in the job description. I've got to pick that up. Communications, presentation skills. There's just a lot of elements that I need to put in there. So I need to put, and using these terms like construction specifically, communications, presentation, I have excellent presentation skills. One of the places that you can put those terms is up here in the profile. I've got mine slightly different here, but I could say presentation skills, construction, like I can put as one of the places, technology competency, whatever. I can put them up here and get them in here and then reuse them throughout. But it's saying I am sadly lacking in the word technology. I have 0 mentions in the resume. Soft skills, again, it talks about innovation. I have 0 mentions of innovation in my resume. There are 12 in the job description. Or innovative, there are 2 and I only have 1. So professional speaking, you can see that there's a pattern here. There's some other words. Tech is used quite there, and it's 11 times the job descriptions, not once. So again, I think you're getting the hint. Recruiter tips. Just they're saying that I have a good word count. They say I have measurable results in my resume. These are the the bites, sound bites. What is it? Smart bites. What is it called? Craig, help me out here if you can.
Oh, success bites.
Success bites. I had a total brain.
Yeah. And you mentioned it earlier, but yes.
I know I did, but that's where the measurable results come in.
Absolutely.
Job level match. You're applying to a director, higher level that requires more experience than listed in your resume. That cracks me up. But it's interesting they said that because I've been a chief operating officer, an executive director, a managing director. So it's interesting. Words to avoid. The tone of your resume is good. And then they appreciate the fact that I have my LinkedIn profile in there. They don't like the, here's where this formatting again is not ATS effective. This box, you don't want to have boxes. You don't want to have, you really want to have more narrative information in an ATS successful resume. So again, this is not even set up for an ATS system. You want to have multiple versions, and your ATS one, and there's lots of help out there. I just wanted to show you this tool, which I think is outstanding. If I was really, really hardcore looking, I would probably upgrade to the professional level. So it's upgrade now to the premium level, I mean, because you're going to get a lot more information. There's a lot more things you can do, and I'd recommend it. But you can see that, as it stands now, I am not going to go through the first pass. I'm probably not even going to get the first pass in a human looking at it, but it's just also not a good fit for me. Let's look at the other side of ATS. I'm going to show you, there's a nice article here. It talks about what does it look like for the HR person looking at the ATS. So if you can imagine, hundreds of resumes have come in for this job, or dozens, doesn't matter. The ATS, I'm now sitting on the hiring manager side and I'm using the ATS. There is going to be, so there's the job, and one of the things they have is called knockout questions. And so, for example, you must be 18 or over, you must be able to work in the US. Indicate your desired salary. God, I hate this question. I hate it with a passion. It is unfair. It is a ridiculous question. For those of you that have been paying attention, it is becoming, in many areas, almost half the states, it's illegal to ask about salary history. So the new norm for HR, for stupid HR people, is to ask for desired salary, which is different. You can ask for desired salary to see if you're in the right ballpark. So if I put down, thanks to the knowledge that I saw that it's about 120 to 130, seems to be in the range. If I put down 130, I'm probably in the right ballpark here, based on what I learned from Guidestar. But geez, I really want 140. But if I put 140, am I going to get knocked out before I even get a chance to talk to anybody? It's a terrible thing to ask, but it's there. Highest level of education, You know, if it says it must be a bachelor's or better, if I don't answer bachelor's or better, I'm not even getting anywhere further along. They'll let me put in all the information, but I'm done. So then they get to the next part. There is a way within the system for them to rate. So in this particular one, if you have a high school GED, you get 0 points. If you have a bachelor's degree, you get 15. If you have a master's, you get 25. If you have a PhD, you get 20. Why is the PhD less? Because actually masters tends to focus, I'm thinking as a hiring manager, focus more on practical work skills, whereas PhD tends to be that research focus. And so depending upon the job, if it's a practical job, it may or may not be the best fit. And so that's why that might have been rated lower. That's the problem is the system may just say that, one, I don't know, it depends on the system. So the question is, in the desired salary, how about just putting $1 and leaving it at that? My concern is the system is looking for a range. They only pass forward people that answer between 75 and 135 as a guess. So I'm nervous of putting a 0. Again, ATS is a very unforgiving. There's no humanity in an ATS. So you filled out your thing and you submitted it. And this is what, I'll make this a little bigger. Hopefully it will be a little clearer. This is kind of what the hiring manager sees, is they're going to see the names of the people and they're going to have scores. So you see Chris Parker has a 70, Olive Gallegos, I don't know if I'm saying that right, is 68, Frank Ross, 65. Down here, Lonnie Demet is at 45. I'm not talking to Lonnie. He's done. I'm probably not going to talk to anybody below a 65, honestly. So there's 10 candidates. And so, they have this dashboard on the backside that they're looking at that allows them to see, the scores. And that's what's driving them. So going back to JobScan, where I had the 21 score, ATS has already kicked me out because I didn't even get, my score is going to be, sorry, I made this big. That 21 is going to be kicked out because when we get to this point of the, score, I'm not even going to show up. It's either not going to put my name forward or it's not going to show up. So I just want you to get a sense of what's going forward, what the recruiter is seeing in that. And again, the nice thing about these software, and Indeed does this, LinkedIn does this, they have a button that when you're reviewing, going through resumes, and you can just, this one's called did not qualify, but it's just like not interested. There's a stop button. And so when I'm reviewing resumes in LinkedIn, Indeed, I don't use an ATS, but I can quickly wean out, just like in the old days when I had a stack of 50 resumes, and I would go through them quickly and I would immediately remove 40 of them, maybe 45 of them in the not interested pile right away and put the ones that looked like they were promising in the other pile. This is just a digital version of that process. But I want you to understand what's going on from the hiring manager standpoint and why an ATS seems like such a cold system is because it is. Meaning the reason you didn't hear from anybody is because you didn't meet the criteria. It's as simple as that. And so, again, it's just, it's looking at software. They're not reading your resumes, not until they get through this point. So the other thing about this is like you saw at the beginning of that ABC where it sat there and said, upload your resume. The ATS was going to take my resume and then automatically try and break it apart and put it into the various parts. That resume I showed you wouldn't work very well because the ATS wouldn't know what to do with a lot of this information. All those bullets and selected accomplishments, it's not going to know what to do with this. There is an ATS friendly format, and it's a lot less formatting, quite frankly, in that it's simple. It's what are your professional experience, and you list the job, you list the dates, you list the job titles, and then you list your experience, and you try to put it in blocks because the ATS is going to grab the blocks. This is not at all ATS friendly. So I just wanted to give you a sense of what's going on in the background. And again, there's if they're looking at, this is the flip side, companies like Amazon and so on will use this, where they'll say, show me, I need to hire 10 people for this position, show me the top 30 applicants. And they can do the reverse search where you may have applied for X, but it felt you were a better search for this, and then put your name forward. So that's the other thing ATS can do. It's not all bad. And for a company like Amazon, for example, which is obviously growing greatly in this area, Apple is growing greatly in this area, and it's not just about tech jobs. There's lots of other jobs that the companies need to keep their company running strong, but this is how they work. And so I just wanted to give you a sense of what's going on behind the scenes of ATS, because it matters. And it's like I say, it's a pretty cold world, but honestly, for a company like an Amazon, and I've worked in HR in Amazon, and I need to find 10 people PDQ pretty damn quick, I'm going to use a system like this and say, okay, let's see. Helen and Kyle, those are good matches. Let me take a look at them. Let me give them a call. Hey, Ellen, would you like to come in? We got a job we'd like to talk to you about. But poor Jerry down here ain't getting a call because Jerry's at 22%. You know, it's that simple.
Ellen, we did have a question. Actually, we now have two, but the question that was first, is there any way to avoid ageism when asked to put year of college graduation?
Nope.
Okay.
If the ATS asks for a question and won't let you go without answering it, you got to answer it. So I want to show you something. Just I'm obviously where I'm at. I don't put dates on my resume for my education for obvious reasons, because, you know, I graduated back in the day when we actually, I worked with a computer the size of a room, and I did key cards when I took my undergraduate degree. Some of you might relate to that. Most of the people today don't even know what that computer looks like, or they've seen a picture of it in a book. I actually use them. If an ATS asks for information, it won't let you go forward without putting it in. You got to put it in and just hope that they don't read too much into it. I will say why ageism is very alive and strong. There is, in this market where it's slimmer pickings for a lot of jobs, at least there's some pressure to look at, you know, to reverse that trend. But ageism is alive and strong. It just is. Sorry.
Yes, it is. That's all right. I think we all know it is.
We're here because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And to give myself away, the first time I applied for a job, I did it on a typewriter. So there you go. The other question is there something called tagcrowd.com to help you pick out keywords for cover letters? There
is. They're called word clouds. So that's a great point. I didn't have that, but I think it's worth a moment. Word cloud. I can spell software. Let's see. Let's try monkey learn and see how good this is. Okay, so I am going to take this director of job description, and I'm going to hit copy, and I'm going to drop it. So word cloud, you're going to see it in real time. Generate cloud. What it does is you take all the words, and this is, and thank you. Who brought that up? Because they get a bonus. Shoot, here we go.
Joan did.
Joan, well done. What it does is it looks at the words, and the more that you see the word, the more the word is repeated in that passage or passages or whatever you pasted in there, the bigger it is. So innovation, you can see, is the largest word. So innovation definitely is important to this job. Construction technology is a second. Then you start seeing sort of third and fourth tier. Demonstrated ability, construction industry, ABC members, kind of big, presentation skills, and then it gets smaller and smaller as it becomes less. This is a good technique to get a sense of what these are. And you saw that I just typed in word cloud and I just clicked on the first one. And this one actually I kind of like because it was so easy. And then I can save this picture if I want and look at it. But thank you, Joan, for bringing it up. Word cloud is a good way to look at it. I mean, it's an alternative way to job scan does it in a more structured environment, but the word cloud is a helpful tool. So I'd better make sure I use the word construction technology and innovation a lot in my resume. And demonstrated ability and communications, presentation skills, these are all important to this job. So it is another way to do it. So thank you. Let's see. We talked about salary questions. I just want to say that that's where Guidestar can be super helpful, at least giving you a ballpark to shoot for. And there are other places to look, but that's the one that tends to be more consistent. If you are applying for nonprofit or or for-profit, let's say it's a smaller organization that only has 5 employees, look for similar organizations in the field. So maybe you're looking at, let's take argument, an insurance office, and there's only 5 people at this local Allstate, and they're looking for somebody that you have that you're interested in, but you're not sure how much you're going to pay. Then do a search of larger insurance agencies in the area and see what they're paying. Generally, the smaller company is going to pay less, but you're at least going to be in the right ballpark. Sometimes small companies pay more, but usually it's the other way around. The bigger companies pay more, smaller companies pay less. It's a natural connection. Yep, I was going to say, I was looking at the clock and I see we're down to 10 minutes left. So I wanted to, I'm sort of done with what I wanted to share and see if anybody had any questions, comments, concerns that they wanted to explore, and feel free to use your mic.
If you have any questions, now is a good time to engage with Alan directly. As he said, go ahead and open your mic and fire away.
I must have answered all the questions.
Yeah.
Then, so thank you.
Right.
I do appreciate your time tonight. I can't say it highly enough. I've been, as you may saw at the beginning, I've been with 40 Plus now for 10 years. It has been a phenomenal support system to my career. And that's why I give back year after year, why I'm still here 10 years later. It was the turning point and one of my darkest times trying to find a job. And walking in and running into Joel Sephardi at the old P Street office when I was really thinking, gosh, I'm never going to find another job. And that 40 Plus class, the 40 Plus experience turned everything around for me.
Well, Alan, thank you very much for an informative presentation. You're always very enlightening. And as I mentioned before, Alan's been one of our facilitators many times, so he's really good at what he does. And, Alan, like a lot of the volunteers, are 40 Plus alums. That includes myself. I've been through the process now twice. I left Safeway in 2016, and about a week or two after I was released, Rich Eisenberg at the time mentioned 40 Plus to me, and I went to the P Street location, got involved, and I've unfortunately had to come back a second time not too long ago, but I've been employed for 6 months now, and I do owe it to 40 Plus and some of the speakers that we've had. So this is a really great resource. I hope all of you found this interesting and will take advantage of the information imparted by Alan tonight. So Alan, thanks very much. Just a few housekeeping items for everyone. So as I mentioned at the top of the program, we are now moving to evening sessions. However, we have a lot of great people can provide a lot of expertise. So please take advantage of that when they're available to speak with us. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Alan, again, thank you very much for a great presentation. And if you missed anything, you want to recap it, there'll be highlights on our YouTube channel in the very near future. So thank you very much. Have a great evening and a great week. And we will see you back here next Monday morning at 10 a.m. Have a great evening.
Good night, everyone.